May all beings be happy. May all beings be healthy. May all beings be free from harm. May all beings love life. May all beings awaken. Welcome to another Cuke Audio podcast. I'm DC Poobah, Cuke Audio and Cuke Archives, doing our bit to help preserve the legacy of Shunryu Suzuki and those whose paths cross his, and anything else that comes to mind. I pray that you and yours are safe and comfortable, free from economic hardship, and able to get out and do whatever it is you want within the limitations of the universal precept of do as little harm as possible. So today we have a guest, Ted Howell. Actually, it's Ted Howell Part 1, because Ted and I talked a long time, and I cut it in two. And then we talked again, and I tacked that onto the end of Part 1 because he was referring to things he'd said earlier in Part 1. And Part 1 ends right with him first coming to Zen Center. So we have a very exciting wait to see what happens next week. Ted came to Zen Center in the mid-'70s. He's known these days, years later, to say the least, as the plumbing grid guy for Tassajara. He goes there during the spring and fall work weeks and has been doing so since back in many, many years ago. And he talks about it some. He's been involved with upgrading the plumbing system, the toilets, and so forth. He's an advisor now. He and I have been in touch for a long time. He is a subscriber to Cuke Archives, and which I heartily, and he heartily recommends that you do too. All you have to do is go to Cuke.com, ShunyuSuzuki.com, hit the donate button, and it'll give you the opportunity to become a subscriber for as little as $1 a month, or make a one-time donation with PayPal, credit card, check. So anyway, let's just hear what Ted has to say and get on with it. Hey, Ted. There you are.
And to push all the buttons, yeah.
Yeah. Well, good day. How are you doing?
Well, good morning to you.
Yeah.
I tried the nap technique, so I'm feeling a little bit like morning myself.
Oh, good. Well, I hope you're fully rested. Wow. Nice place. Nice pictures on the wall. So, Ted, wow, that's cool, that light thing over here on the right.
It's a little sparkly tree thing with little lights on it, so it's a nice night light.
Wow. So what are you up to these days? How do you spend your time?
Happily retired in Tacoma, Washington. My wife continues to work.
April,
yes, you've met April in Germany.
Yeah.
And so, it's just the old man life. I'm tempted to launch into the organ recital.
Well, you seem pretty busy because we communicate,
Yeah, not, I don't really have anything. I mean, right now my big plan is I'm scheduling an upcoming surgery. It's a repair of a thing in my stomach. It's called a hiatal hernia.
Oh yeah,
and you know that. Okay.
Well, I have another type of hernia.
Yeah, well, I've had them all. And this
Huh.
is this is the I've got a trifecta of hernias, and
Wow.
this is the final one. The hiatal hernia is a situation where your stomach is up in your chest and is migrated through your diaphragm, and so they've got to go in and yank the stomach down and do some sutures and stuff to make it stay down. And I've been ignoring it for many years, but
Hmm.
it gets worse in terms of symptomatic. Um, I have difficulty eating very much, and there's other things that happen when the hernia decides to kind of pinch off and things like that. So the surgeon convinced me that there's some life-threatening potential, and so he really wants me to get it corrected. So
Oh,
anyway, I'm trying to schedule it. It's not something that's an emergency right now or anything like that. So I haven't quite scheduled it. So before I schedule it, I'm going to take a little trip because I want to be go do something before it's gonna put me up for a little while.
yeah.
Um, so it's going to be probably about a two a month or so more recovery period.
Really?
Um, Yeah, well, this not the actual physical sutures or anything, but once they've screwed around with my stomach that much, the stomach gets kind of unhappy, and so you have to take several weeks having a liquid diet, and then gradually working your way back up to solid foods. And so,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Hmm.
my energy level is not a good time to travel and stuff like that if I do that. So, unfortunately, because I decided to do this, I've had to bow out of what I typically would be doing, which almost right now, which would be going to the fall Tasahara work period, they call it. That's been my main activity since, well, it's actually I've been doing it since before I retired, but I get to spend more time at it because I don't have to go back to work. So I've been going to Tassajara for work periods, spring and fall.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh my God. What are they going to do if you don't go there?
well, they've gotten along without me before, but and I'm kind of a remote support person too. Like Amy, the current plant manager, will get in touch with me and say, "Hey, I've got this problem or whatever,"
Uh-huh.
and I'll arrange to have products sent, or I'll answer her questions, or whatever. So,
Hmm.
uh, but I'm going to go down and I'm going to take a little trip to the Bay Area and see family and friends and former plumber friends, and I might even pop over to Green Gulch, and then I'm going to go to Santa Fe and see Frank, who
Ah.
lives in Santa Fe now, and I'll hang out with him for a while. Uh, uh, I had kind of hoped to work in a little side excursion over to Crestone, but I don't think that's going to work.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
just in terms of timing. And then, but one of the things I do want to do is grab Frank and take him with me to go to North Carolina to go visit, so the three of us, the two of us, can go visit our friend Tayo.
Ba-bam.
Uh, so Tayo lives in Asheville, and I have a storeroom in Hendersonville, which is real close to Asheville.
Oh,
Uh,
is that the one
um,
that was damaged?
it's totally flooded. It got destroyed. It's really a sad story. My father left me all these cool things, and I had stored them in a climate controlled storeroom with, letters from the late 1800s from, relatives, and, military uniforms, and the records of all his electronic inventions that he did and all this kind of stuff. But Helene destroyed pretty much most of it. I managed to save a few things, and that's
Hmm.
what I'm going to go back and try to finally get rid of, or whatever. I mean, there's like boxes. I managed to save like a box of photographic slides that my father had taken over the years. And I think I might take it to one of those outfits that scan them and turn them into digital.
Yeah.
and be able to save them that way. Um, Stuff like that. But anyway, little tour of Santa Fe and North Carolina and finish up my storeroom stuff, and then I'll head back this direction and prepare for surgery.
Mm.
So that's my current activities, and other than that, so I read, I sit, I walk, I take care of the cats, um, I go shopping, uh, do the dishes,
Yeah.
feed the squirrels.
Ha, feed the squirrels. I never thought of
Yeah,
feeding squirrels.
a long time ago, I don't know about how long, but I mean several years ago, um, our cats started acting funny, and uh, we came to discover that a squirrel had built a chimney. I mean, it built a nest in our one of our chimneys, and it's an old chimney that isn't used. It's like one that used to be for the kitchen and living room stoves that aren't there any longer. So it's a brick
Hmm.
chimney, and they had little chimney covers on them, little like pie pans over their openings into the rooms, and we were trying to figure out what was going on, and then all of a sudden the squirrel came bursting out of one of those pie pans, all covered in soot, and was
Ha,
running around the house.
ha,
And we let the squirrel out, and it turned out that this squirrel was not very good at building nests and had built a nest about three-quarters of the way down the chimney, and the nest had given way, and all the babies had fallen all the way down to the bottom, and the squirrel basically abandoned them. And we called around to try to find somebody who would try to pull them out. And we eventually did find somebody who pulled them out. There was three of them, but by the time we got them out, one of them basically died right away. And then after some other calling around, we found a magical squirrel lady who came, and no, she didn't come. We put the squirrels in a box and took them to her. So we drove them to her. She's about 45 minutes away, a little almost up towards the foothills there. And she rehabilitated them, except another one of them died in that course of time because they were just little eyes were closed and stuff. And then she had another rescue squirrel that somebody else had brought her, and she asked us if we wanted the squirrel back and would we take this other one because they were kind of like brothers. They joined together. So yeah, we did. So we got this giant cage that she loaned us, and we put it on the front porch, and the squirrels were in it, and we fed them, and they got used to being outside. And then after they were more comfortable in the environs and everything, we opened the cage. And after a while, like maybe a day, they started exploring outside. And then we left this cage there in case they wanted to come back. And then they actually went back. And then they came back to the porch frequently. So I would feed them. And thus I feed the squirrels.
ha. That's a unique story. I've never heard of anybody feeding squirrels. Huh. Very nice.
So now I put nuts out every morning, and
What sort of
I sit out on
nuts?
I get nuts in the shell, like raw. If you search Google nuts for squirrels, and you can buy them,
Oh,
walnuts and filberts and almonds and just different variety of nuts that are this kind of nuts people would eat at holidays and stuff like that. So I buy nuts, and I put a scoop and peanuts. Oh yes, of course, raw peanuts in the shell, and I fill a little canister with them, and I put a dried corn on the cob thing on a post that they come up and pull off, and then I sit out on the porch with my tea, and the squirrels are running around the porch, and they run around my feet and stuff. Now I can't even count. I think I've got like five or six of them that come and visit, and it's all very cute. And the birds
ah,
are coming, and I when I take walks, I throw peanuts out to the this is another thing I did is I made friends with a pair of crows that live in the neighborhood.
pardon,
And
what?
crows,
Is it-
the bird, CROWS.
Oh, okay.
and crows. I took an online course on crows. Crows mate for life, and they live like 25 years or somewhat like that. And they have territories and stuff. So I've got an actual pair of crows that are my neighborhood crows that know who I am, and I throw peanuts out for them. And crows, I discovered, they're very close to ravens, and they will uh, talk a little bit to people.
Yeah.
Like they'll come up on the wire up above me, and they put their head down and they click, and then they hunch their back, and then they go, hello, hello. And that's because I say hello to them. And I at first when they did it, I thought, is there somebody in the neighborhood here that's trying to say hello to me? And I finally figured it out. It's the crow that's talking to me.
Mm.
And
That's very
they know
interesting. Yeah, I'm going to
they know
tell
my, yeah.
Elin this because when we were living in Santa Fe back in 92-3, she she was in the backyard and she came inside and said, "David, a crow just landed in front of me and said hello."
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. They'll do that.
Oh, with that,
Yeah.
that's, you've given it some context there.
Yes.
I'll
Yeah.
definitely tell her that. Oh,
Yeah. She wasn't just saying they said hello, like sometimes somebody said, a dog came up and said hello to me, and that's kind of different. But these ones actually say hello. So,
yeah, that's what she said. She was sort of
yeah.
amazed.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And a really funny thing is that they know my car and my Forerunner. And so, because I'll roll down the window as I drive out, and they're hanging out, and there's of course there's neighborhood crows. Sometimes uh, the crows will come together, and that murder of crows thing where they all come together. It's a certain period of time in the year when they socialize, and so
Hmm.
they'll all like sometimes I've got like 25 crows out in front of, or they're flying around in a group, and they'll hang out in front of my house. Anyway, I'll roll down the window and I'll throw peanuts out. So the really fun thing is that let's say I'm coming home and I'm coming down the hill in my Forerunner, and all of a sudden I've got a pair of crows flying like fighter escort on either side of the car, and they'll fly like right next to the windows and match my speed, and it's like they're like saying hello, and I'll roll down the windows and throw out some peanuts, and so it's really kind of
Wow.
fun. And people know who I am because I'm walking around the neighborhood, and somebody said, "Oh, I know you," and I said, "Why?" Because you're the crow guy. And why do you say that? It's just because when you walk, there's a bunch of crows following you. So,
Oh, that is so interesting. Huh.
yeah, it's fun. So that's my me and my menagerie of wildlife here.
Wow.
It's nice.
And
I
where
live
is
in I live
here? Where is here?
here is Tacoma, Washington,
Mhm.
and in a portion of the town that's called Old Town because it's the original settlement of the town. And it's about and it's right on the Commencement Bay, which is basically a bay off of the huge Puget Sound. And Tacoma is a port town, so the bay has a lot of those cranes and all that. I see a lot of the big container ships coming in and out. And our house is up the hill from the bay, about 3 blocks, and I look out my kitchen window, and I have a lovely view of the Puget Sound,
Mm,
and it's a
mm.
very walkable, quiet, low rise. People with yards. The intersections don't have stoplights or stop signs even, so I can just walk out, and it's a very walkable area, a very
Mm,
quiet area.
mm.
So yeah, it's a lovely place. Um,
Huh. The airport's there, huh?
well, no, it's got the name Seattle Tacoma Airport, and it's sometimes called SeaTac. Um, but it's about 30 or 40 minutes north of us. But it's between us and Seattle.
Oh,
And
oh.
and the town is actually there's a town there that's SeaTac, and the airport's known as SeaTac. I don't know if the town got the name from the airport or the airport got the name from the town or whatever, but uh, Tacoma's a little bit like the San Jose of of Bay Area. It's
Hmm.
the other town. Seattle is the what everybody knows, like San Francisco, and then Tacoma's the little offshoot side town. It's growing. A lot of the companies that are in Seattle will open up offices and stuff in Tacoma, and it's kind of a bedroom community for Seattle. And then if the companies move their offices here, well, then the people don't have to travel so far. So,
Mm.
and that's all change. COVID threw wrenches into all of that, but it's re-evolving now.
Mm. Mm. Wow. Well, that was really good to hear. That unexpected. I'll think of you now, sort of like I don't know. Who do you think? Saint Francis with the verse, right?
Yes,
Uh,
right, right,
at least the
right.
legendary Saint Francis. Well, wh- I'd like to know like where you're from and how your path led to Zen Center.
Well, first of all, let me thank you for including me in your history annals. I feel like in some ways I don't belong here.
I hear that a
Uh,
lot. Really,
yeah.
I do. Well, no, you do.
Well, yeah, I'm another brick in the wall and another paving stone in the path or whatever.
Uh,
And so, in some ways, I feel like I, I'm obligated to at least, uh, you know, be part of the historical framework uh, that you're putting together. And I've told you several times. I don't know. Do you have any idea? I listen to your podcast fairly often, um, but I'm not completely 100% up to speed. I skip over ones just because it's a certain amount of time commitment to follow old David's. And some of them are like 2 or 3 hours long or something. So,
yeah, definitely.
um, do you track listenership, or is that even a thing with podcasts?
Yeah. Um, oh, I think there's like I don't know. I don't know that the statistics if they cover everything because these go to Spotify and Apple Music and YouTube and other places. But in the statistics, they're sort of like 30 to 50 people a day. Nothing,
Yeah.
nothing big. A lot. I don't promote it or I don't ask people to like and share and that sort of thing.
Yeah, right.
And I figure, people who want to hear it will find it or something like that. But I'm approaching 100,000 downloads, so it adds up.
Oh, I tried to ask my buddy ChatGPT uh, about that, about your podcast, and it came up with Apple Podcast lists a solid 4.6 average from 12 ratings for your thing, but that doesn't translate into listener numbers. Median podcasts get about 114 downloads in the first week, just industry wide. And
Oh,
top
yeah,
10% shows get about,
114 in a week.
yeah, in the
Uh,
first week.
in,
Yeah.
in the first week.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll get more than that.
Yeah. It says Q audio rating is in the top 10% suggests it maybe gets 400 or 500 range per episode.
Is that right?
Um,
No.
that's what Chat GPT just
Well,
said. I
good
don't
for
know.
it. Well, I try not to follow things like that. I,
I figured.
you know, that
Yeah.
just gets in the way, and you get your mind going and
Right.
thinking about it.
Right. Right.
Because it's sort of like, wanting to be popular.
Yes. Right. Well, I mean, I think that's part of, the when a person will say, I don't belong here. And I was kind of imagining a friend of mine, like perhaps Tayo, if I said, Tayo, you should do a podcast with David. And I'm sure Tayo would say something like, oh, I have no interest. I'm not interested in that
Oh
kind of
yeah,
thing.
there's definitely
And
people like that, and there's people who said, well, I started off for years or decades just interviewing people, and some people would say, oh no, that's private, you know,
right, right,
and that's a very small percentage. Other people would just say, well, I thought about it and I think not. And the ones who are most reticent to do it are women.
right. I've heard you say that. Hmm.
Yeah, I'm sure you've heard me say it because I complain about it and try to shame them into. I say, "What? You're making it look like there's all men that were around."
Right, right,
You
right,
know?
right. Yeah, that's kind of a lopsided view of Zen Center, isn't it?
Yeah, but there's a lot of women there. One
Sure.
thing
Yeah.
I notice, in this Tassajara Stories trilogy, that the first part's coming out soon, is that I really had to make an effort to keep a balance of females in it. And one reason is because the males tended to be more, they had more, what would you say? I don't want to say more ego. They're more aggressive. They're more competitive. There's more stories with them. The women tended to be quieter, and there's less to say.
Mhm.
I mean, the most outrageous characters are almost all men. I was
Right.
thinking about that this morning. Maggie Kress, do you remember her?
No, I never knew her.
Well, and yeah, she was something. I mean, but so yeah, I've thought a lot about men, women, the difference between men and women in our subculture and culture, and it's interesting. But so back to the original
Back to
question. Where do you
Yep.
come from, and what's your way-seeking mind story? I mean,
The bodhicitta. Yes. Okay. Well, I was born in 1955 in a town that I've never been to because uh, Lynn, Massachusetts. Uh, my father, who was an electronics engineer, was working for the General Electric Company and was working in one of General Electric's places, factories, in somewhere in Massachusetts. I actually don't remember where. Um, and we lived on an island called Little Nantucket.
oh,
And I was born on my father's birthday.
oh,
And so,
cool.
and so my father and I shared the birthday, and my siblings are about 8 years, or were about 8 years older than me, twins who shared a birthday, obviously. And so we were a family of three birthdays and five people. And so that was an interesting thing. But we moved soon. By 8 months, we moved into back to North Carolina, which is where my parents hail from. My father had grown up in Western North Carolina in Hendersonville or thereabouts, and my mother had grown up in Eastern North Carolina in the High Point area, the daughter of a tobacco farmer.
Mm.
And uh, so I visited North Carolina quite often growing up. We lived in Hendersonville up until I was about 7, and then we moved to central New York State in the Finger Lakes region to a little town, a little west of Syracuse called Skaneateles. And Skaneateles is the index finger of the Finger Lakes, if you're looking at the map of the
Huh.
Finger Lakes. And it's the furthest east one, I think. No, not quite. I think the one that's the Syracuse is on the thumb. But anyway, Skaneateles is a nice, long, thin, glacier-formed lake in a little village of, I don't remember the population. I went back not too long ago and I looked it up, but a very, very small town. High school was, just one high school. I think maybe 1,000 kids in school or something like that. I went back to the 50th high school reunion not too long ago, and I was looking at it and I realized that the cohort of people that I graduated with, most of us had been together since first grade or kindergarten.
Mm.
I came in second grade, and but a very cohesive group that stayed together all those years and then graduated, and now many of them are still living in that little town. And
Mm.
I'm one of the few that reached escape velocity and got out of there.
uh,
And it's the snow belt, which
mm.
is fun when you're growing up, but it's like sometimes I would say that it's a great place to visit, but once I realized I don't have to live here, I left. So
Yeah.
because it's such a weather challenge to live there. I mean, I remember many times the blizzards that came in and shut everything down, and we didn't have to go to school, and no cars on the road, and all us kids were out on the streets sledding and throwing snowballs and digging forts and stuff like that.
uh,
Uh, so went to high school in Skaneateles, and my sisters went off to theater school. So they left the house, and it was just me. And they went to the University of North Carolina and majored in theater, and had decided to become famous actresses, um, which they never achieved that, but that was their effort. And it's interesting. A little side note: my ex-wife Antoinette called me a few days ago and said, I was watching TV. And I was watching, I don't know, Columbo or some show, and then she said I wasn't paying all that much attention, and some character came on, and she said, "That looks like Margaret." That's my sister. And then she said, "Yeah, that's Margaret." And then she watched the credits, and that's right, that was my sister, who had filmed that episode. She'd gotten that gig many many years ago, and every now and then she pops up on TV.
ah,
Um,
that's neat.
um, so they went off. My parents split up while I was at home while they were going through the the process of splitting up. My father had a heart attack when I was maybe 14 or something like that on a business trip in Kokomo, Indiana, and the company. Some friends of the family came and grabbed my mother and me, knocked on the door. Keith has had a heart attack. So we go to the airport and we get in a little Cessna or something and fly from Syracuse to Indiana and go see dad in the emergency room. And, it was all very traumatic. And my sisters eventually showed up and all of that. But it was kind of the genesis of his reviewing his life and deciding that he didn't want to be married to this person any longer. And so he, none of that was made explicitly clear to me. And I'm out there just going to school and being a kid, being a teenager, and trying to live my life. But my father then took a job in Connecticut and would go away during the week and come back on the weekends. And then slowly he stopped coming back on the weekends. So we had this wonderful old Victorian house in Skaneateles. And my mother basically went into dysfunctional depression and was incapable of functioning. She was crushed. And that was a kind of a major impression on me, to see that she was totally subservient. Her entire sense of self was based on other, which was dad.
Yeah.
And when dad rejected her, it destroyed her.
Yeah.
And I spent a lot of time like talking to her and stuff, and trying to say, like, what's going on, and trying to see if I could encourage her to move on. And in that time frame, I discovered LSD, and lots of times I would be out with all night long with other friends of mine, and we had done an acid trip. And one morning I came home to the house, having done a all night long acid trip, and I went to try to find mom, and mom had fallen out of bed. She self-medicated with probably some antidepressants or whatever, because she was trying to see people, and drank a lot. And and I wouldn't say that she was an alcoholic. She was just heavily self-medicating with alcohol. And she had fallen out of bed and was lying there in a pool of blood, had hit her head or something. And I, cleaned her up and got her back in bed and went back downstairs and called my father, and I said, I'm done. She's yours. You got to figure this out. I can't do this. And after a while, friends of the family showed up, and she ended up in a mental institution in Syracuse. And my dad came and my sisters came, and we packed up the house, and he sold the house. And I ended up having to spend I think the second half of my senior year, I ended up living in a room in my girlfriend's house, seeing her mother. Her mother was separated, and they had a nice little house, and they had an extra room.
High school?
High school, yeah. But that LSD experience was my, that's when somebody gave me Be Here Now. And this is the original copy that I've had all these years.
Wow.
And that was, and I remember after like my first LSD trip, I sat down and I made a list of everything I need to change about myself. It was, deeply introspective. I found great fault in all these things, or there were things I needed to work on, I guess. And then I got this, Be Here Now, and well, this was how I was going to work on myself. And in the back of Be Here Now, I've told you this before, is the schedule for Tassajara. And there's a picture of Suzuki with Dentatsu, sort of well-known picture of them sitting at Tassajara. You familiar with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember reading that schedule and thinking to myself, that's great. I want to live like that. I want to follow that schedule. It sounds wonderful. But it wasn't the type of realization where I said, I'm going right now.
Uh-huh.
Uh, it was more like tucked away. That that's where I want to go. In the meantime, I had decided to go into theater myself. One day I was
Hmm.
walking down the hall in high school, and the English teacher slash theater director, the guy that did the spring play and the fall play and the senior play and all of that kind of stuff, whose name was Ted Davenport, the giant man, very gregarious, an actor, had lots of acting history himself. And I was walking down the hall, and he grabbed me and threw me up against the lockers and said, "You're going to be in a play." And I said, "Okay." And what had happened was that I was a junior in high school, and he was directing the senior play. And the male lead of the senior play had, partway through the rehearsal period, had decided to drop out and couldn't handle it. And so I was the substitute, which was kind of a radical choice because I was a junior. And I don't know exactly what it was that made him pick me, but he did.
I have an
And
idea.
was that?
Well, I I got starting in junior high, I'd always get the leads of the plays, and it was because of my voice. My voice carried
Oh,
to the end of the auditorium, and most of the
right.
kids didn't have voices like that.
Yeah, I don't know if I mean, it's I've had a lot of voice training, so that may be reflected in what you hear. But it's been many years since I've done anything like that. But I probably had a natural voice for it to begin with.
Yeah.
Um, so I did the senior play, and then the next year I did the senior play again. I was the lead in my own senior class's senior play, and I had decided that I was going to go into theater. So between my junior and senior years, I managed to sign up for a workshop in Saratoga, New York, where the graduating class from the Juilliard School was performing a repertoire theater engagement where they did a series of plays, and they were then the instructors for a camp for high school kids who were there to be doing theater training, introductory theater training, movement and dance and voice and improv, all that kind of stuff. And then we were the extras in the play, and we were the ushers for the shows, and we were the slave labor
Uh-huh.
for the program. And so I got to know the people at Juilliard. So I decided to apply to Juilliard after graduating, or during my senior year, to apply to Juilliard, to attend Juilliard. Juilliard was mainly known as a dance school, and the senior class that I studied with that summer was the first drama class at Juilliard, which
Uh-huh.
was established by John Houseman and
Hmm.
another fellow whose name I'm forgetting. And so John Houseman and this guy established, and you've heard the name John Houseman, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So,
Although
and
you could refresh me on why I remember that name. It's John Houseman
he's
acting. Uh,
he's fairly well known for having done the War of the Worlds with Orson Welles, um, where they did that radio program where they scared the United States into thinking that we had been invaded by aliens.
right. I forgot
And
about that.
so And then the another thing that film of his, he's done a number. He did well. He's passed away, but a number of films that he did. But one of them, people recall him as The Paper Chase,
Oh
where he
yeah.
played a professor. And so, and he was uh, it was his presence was overwhelming. He was overbearing. He was very, very there. So when I applied to Juilliard, there were 800 applicants, and they were only accepting 30 people in the class. And I was initially not accepted. And so I didn't know what to do because I had decided I was going to go there and I didn't apply to any other school. And then I got notification that there had been some people who had dropped out and they had gone ahead and accepted me. And so I was going to Juilliard. And my sisters at that time were both living in New York City. So I went and got a room in one of my sister's apartments. They weren't living in the same apartment at the time. And I proceeded to go to Juilliard. And I joined a class of very, very talented people that was very, very intimidating. And I didn't really belong there. Christopher Reeve was in my class.
Oh yeah.
Um, Robin Williams was in my class.
Right.
I was in the same school. There was number of people. Kevin Kline, lots of really amazing people. I remember I was in a one of their you take a lot of classes in what are basically a dance studio, just big empty room with mirrors and a rail, and then from there they can bring things in and you can do stuff. And one time we went in there and they said, okay, we're going to go and we're going to do the balcony scene from Romeo and Juliet. And everybody in my class except me knew the balcony scene for Romeo and Juliet. And I mean, I knew it, but everybody knew the lines. And so people were taking turns, okay, you two, it's like, jazz riff or something. Now and now you. And Christopher Reeve jumped up there and was playing, and he ripped off his shirt. Christopher Reeve was a swimmer. I went to his apartment when I first got there. He was a man in an amazing shape. And he's out there and he rips off his shirt in this, fit of passion as he's acting. And every woman in the room, mouths dropped open. And this collective, gasp went around the room. It's like, oh my God, he's like a god. So, and I remember at that moment thinking, I don't belong here.
ah, ah, that's funny. That's
I was
really
really pretty intimidated by the whole scene. And I had approached theater kind of like a spiritual exercise. I was reading about method acting and getting to know yourself and trust exercises and group exercises and stuff like that. And I think theater was like therapy is what I thought it was going to be. Or I wasn't conscious, but it was something that maybe in retrospect I thought maybe that's what happened to me. But I was struck by severe stage fright at some point where I was trying to just do a speech class. I got up and I was supposed to, read some lines and, we were working on our diction and that sort of stuff. And I just started quivering and couldn't do anything. And when I was in front of people and people said, what's going on? And I had no idea. But I hung in there until the very end, and then in the last month, I was called into John Houseman's office, and he leaned across the desk, and I was sitting there in front of his giant desk, and he did his paper chase thing and says, "I'm sorry, Mr. Howell, but it's not going to work out." And
uh-huh.
all of a sudden, I was not at school anymore. And so I went back to Skaneateles and got a room in the Sherwood Inn, which was a roadhouse that had been there since the 1800s, and it was being renovated. And I think my father paid for the room or something, and I got a gig at the local community theater and did a couple of shows. And one of my sisters was living in San Francisco and studying at the American Conservatory Theater. And one of the things I got interested in at Juilliard was something called the Alexander technique,
Yeah.
this body movement technique, body awareness technique. And I found that quite compelling. And so I had thought to myself that maybe I want to study the Alexander technique. And
Hmm.
the Alexander technique had a school in San Francisco
What
because
year
the
is
American
this?
Conservatory Theater, much like probably 74.
Uh-huh.
I graduated 73, so I went to Juilliard 73, 74, summer of 74 in Skaneateles. Yeah, 74. And I have some notes that I put in one of my journals years ago about what I did, what years. Yeah, that's when it was, 73, 74. So I decided I was going to go to San Francisco and study the American Conservatory. I mean, study the Alexander technique because there was a teacher at ACT too who was an Alexander teacher, and then the Alexander Training School was in the Bay Area. So that's what I was going to do. So I packed up my 12-string guitar and decided to hitchhike across country. And I took a bunch
12
of stuff to my
string.
father's in
Huh.
Connecticut. Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
I taught myself to play guitar somewhere in there. I was
12
also going
string
to be a rock star.
stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, you start with a six string, and then 12 is just double strings in the same fingers.
Yeah.
It's not that hard.
Yeah. Well, I've played 12 string, but it's more of an effort. It's different. It's very different. And
It's a different sound. Yeah,
yeah.
I did a lot of fingering, and and in high school I was into when my big old Europe, big old what did I call it, Elizabethan house or whatever, was empty because my parents were not around. One week I brought every musician in town into my house and we turned it into a recording studio. And we
Hmm.
set up, I had a reel-to-reel tape machine that my father had, and everybody was playing their own original stuff. And that was my gig. I wanted everybody to bring all their original stuff. And so and I've lost the tape now. I thought I found it for a while, but now the tape is gone. But it was cool. My father was an electronics engineer working for the General Electric Company, and he was a genius. And he had, like, by the time he passed away, he had like 115 or 50 patents.
Oh.
He's responsible for the ground fault circuit interrupter. That's his patent. So that little outlet in everybody's bathroom and kitchen now with a little test button on it, that's Dad. He did that. And
Hmm.
he did the circuits that made Tommy the Turtle uh, be a famous toy and move and talk and wink and things like that. He did the Thunderbird turn signals that go like dot 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 dot, from a single line of lights that start on one side and go in a cascade one direction or the other direction. He built them all on a wooden boards and put them in the back of our car as he was creating them. And so we were driving around in Skaneateles with these boards in the back of our car that had these lights that would go every time we turned on the turn signal. So
uh,
and he did Henry the Talking Pumpkin, who was a paper mache pumpkin that had lights inside, and when it talked, he hid behind a window that he put one way mirror mylar on, and then lit the porch with black light. And Henry glowed, and he had controls inside where he could make Henry's head swivel, and his eyes would light up. And then my father, who was an actor too, and he would go, "Hello, I'm Henry." And so kids would walk up to the porch to go trick or treating, and all of a sudden Henry would light up and start laughing and talking and scare the crap out of kids. And he was
Mm.
an attraction every year. He was in the newspaper every year. Anyway,
Wow.
how did I get there? So
Yeah. You're in San Francisco.
I'm in San Francisco. So anyway, I went to see my dad, and he was, oh sure, you're going to go hitchhike across country? That's fine. He helped me paint a sign that said north, south, east, and west, and it was on cardboard. We put white paint on it, and it would flip over as like a sandwich sign. And if wherever I was, if I wanted to go one direction, I'd just prop it up on the ground in front of me and say east. I want to go east, or I want to go south, or I want to go north. And I got my backpack and my guitar, and I hitchhiked across country and landed in San Francisco. Played guitar on the street to make some money,
Mm.
and lived in my sister's studio apartment, and tried to get a job, and eventually got a job as a mail messenger at the Bank of America headquarters building, which is no longer that; it's some other company. But at the time, it was the tallest building in San Francisco. And I was on foot inside mail messenger on 3 floors. I had the 16th through the 18th floors were mine. And push a little cart, go from desk to desk, dropping things. And sometimes I'd go out on the street and deliver mail to other buildings and stuff like that. And so I got in at 6:30 in the morning, and I'd sort the mail and chatted up with all the different execs that I met, and the secretaries, flirt with all the secretaries and all of that kind of stuff, and took more psychedelics and read my spiritual books.
What spiritual books? Now, Be Here Now is you showed us.
Be Here Now. I don't remember exactly, and maybe I don't remember. I don't remember what I found. I mean, but Siddhartha comes to mind.
Uh-huh.
I was just kind of flailing about.
Did you read The Prophet?
Yes. Oh, yes. Yeah. That was like one of my things, and I started meditating and just following the instructions. And I had a little corner of my room with a little altar, and was and had found some friends that had met a guy that became my really best friend. He was at the California College of Arts and Crafts, which was a real hip thing at the time in Oakland. And got an apartment near there, had a nice room there, would take a bus across the bay every morning really early to go to my Bank of America job. And my friend Will and I spiritually shopped. We went around and I don't remember, I remember a Tibetan place, probably Nyingma. And I think we went to a talk there, and I think the person who gave the talk was a Zen person. And I remember somebody asked a question and said to that person giving the talk, "What color is enlightenment?" And this priest said, "Clear." And I thought, "Oh, that's good. That's really good."
That's good. That's what you remember. Steve Wright, the comedian.
Steve Wright.
Steve Wright,
sort of.
He does all these.
Oh, right. Yes. Oh, yeah.
One-liners. Yeah. He said, "My high school colors were clear."
Yes, that's right. Yep. Yep. So one day, my friend Will and I, it's like I did the same thing. Look in the phone book, find Zen. There's Zen Center. And so I was looking around. There were newspapers. They're like little newspaper rags. Like I took a yoga class. You could take all these different spiritual like classes and stuff. And anyway, I found the Zen Center was one of the things that was listed somewhere. So my friend Will and I went and knocked on the door. I think we were going at an appropriate time, like we were there for Zazen instruction on a Saturday morning. Um, and person opened the door, and it was Isan Dorsey.
Ba-bam.
And, and it's funny because not too long ago, I was driving up from Tassajara and I stopped at Zen Center because I wanted to see the remodel. And unannounced, no plans or anything. I knocked on the door. Guy opens the door, and I said, 50 years ago, I knocked on this door, and Isan Dorsey opened the door. And the guy who answered it said, well, he's not going to do that now. And I said, yeah, I know. And as a side note, that guy, his name is Charles, I think, just dropped everything, took me on a tour of the building.
Oh, very nice.
And it was lovely. And yeah, he was quite pleasant. He'd been living there for 14 years. And,
goodness. What's his last name?
I don't know.
Uh-huh.
But I could find out. Charles, I'm positive his name is Charles, and he actually I saw him in a Zen Center email not too long ago.
Yeah.
I think he just got lay and enhancement whatever that's called. Entrustment, lay entrustment. And it's beautiful, beautiful remodel. It's just fantastic. Anyway, Isan opened the door and gave us Zazen instruction. And then we had tea with him in the flop room, my friend Will and I. And I was kind of hooked. And so I started commuting across the bay to come to. No, I know what I did because I worked. My hours were very early in the morning, and I got off work at 3 in the afternoon. And I would go to Zazen in the evenings, 5 o'clock or whatever it was that
5:30
and 5:30, and that's. I remember the first thing I had to do is try to work on where did I put my shoes. Which later I heard the koan of what side of your umbrella is the shoes on, and it's like I don't even remember that koan in detail, except that the guy comes in and asks the teacher a question, and the teacher answers with what side of your umbrella is your shoes, which then the guy who asked the questions realized that he had a lot of work to do and left. So when I was early Zen student, big shoe rack, and I'd come out from Zazen and go, I don't remember where I put my shoes. And so that was like something that was some turning things. Like, I gotta remember where I put my shoes. That's my practice. I need to know, like, how do I find out a way to remember where I put my shoes?
Right.
And now it's actually, ingrained in me. Like, I go to Tassajara and stuff like that.
Yeah.
When I take my shoes off and I put them on the shoe rack, there's a pause, and I'm consciously aware of my shoes are here. And I never forget where they are. It's like, now, of course, how could it have been that at one point in my life, I didn't know where I had put my shoes? I guess that says something about where I was at the time.
So we're going to pick up next week where we left off there. Ted has just arrived at Zen Center and now knows how to find his shoes after Zazen. We went on for a long time, so the second part of that discussion will be next week. And now, what I'm going to add right here is a discussion we had a couple of days later where said some things I wanted to hear. He talked about some things he felt were incomplete the way he'd left them, and wanted to add a little bit more. So here we go with the addenda to Ted Howell, Part 1. I remember Robin Williams coming to Green Gulch for something. Tell us about that.
Do you remember it too, or
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember it. I talked
cool.
to you right at the time, and I remember that conversation. So,
Oh well, you might remember more than me, but my memory is kind of limited. What I recall is that at lunch one day I went to the dining room and got in line, in that line that goes down the middle of the dining room while you're headed towards the table for food. And I was all of a sudden I noticed that person about two people up ahead of me was Robin Williams. And so I went over to him and hi, Robin. And he remembered me. And I obviously recognized him and he clearly recognized me. And I asked him what he was doing there. And he was at a workshop, he said. He was with his wife, Valerie, I believe, at the time. I think that's not the wife that he had later. Um, and he had said to me that he was taking some sort of a workshop because Valerie had wanted him to take this workshop. Um, and he said, I had gotten to the point where if I went to the refrigerator and opened the refrigerator door to get something and the light came on, I went into my routine. So he was like, he said, I was constantly on. And so needed to have something to kind of break that. And I don't even remember, maybe you do, what the workshop was.
no.
And then he later invited me and Antoinette and my family to come up to his house in Napa for a party of some kind, which we did. And nice big estate type of thing. And we went in and we settled down. As I recall, it was sort of some food being served around a pool area. And Robin came and hung out with us for a while. And we didn't know anybody else. And so we didn't stay all that long and left. And I never really stayed much more in contact with him after that.
And remind us how you knew him.
Oh, well, so Robin was at Juilliard when I went to Juilliard. His locker was right next to mine in the locker room. And, nice little tight little locker room. So I got to see him like all the time.
Yeah.
And he and I were interested in the same woman for a while. Neither of us got together with a woman, but, so we shared some sympathies about that with each other. But he was on all the time. That he had sort of a frenetic energy to him, just like he does in performing. But he was like that in the locker room. He was a little tiresome, frankly. Because you couldn't like really, come on, Robbins, just settle down. Let's just talk normal, okay? But he had all these characters that he would take, just moment after moment after moment. He was going into this character and that sort of thing. He did a lot of street performance in New York when we were at Juilliard. He and another guy just enjoyed going out on the street and doing improv stuff on the street. And so he was just constantly very talented, obviously. But some burden seems to have gone with the talent.
What I remember, the main thing I remember, talking to you about that, and you're saying he'd invited you all to come stay. I think they had a guest house, and had invited you and Antoinette and I guess Sean.
Sean and Lucas was around too.
Sean and Lucas to come spend the weekend and hang out. And I said, "Oh, wow, really? So are you going to do it?" And you said, "No." And I said, "Why not?" And you said just what you were saying now. You said, "He's always on." That's all you said. He's always on.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was hard to get close with him, you know.
Mm.
So, and I've heard other people in like interviews and stuff like that talk about him in the same way. That it was a it was something about him. And I mean, obviously his wife was having some issue with it too. So,
Well, the fact that he said what he said to you about every time I opened the refrigerator, blah, blah, means he was well aware of it.
yep, yep.
Peter Sellers said he had the same problem. He said if he wasn't, at least in one interview, he said this. He said if he wasn't acting, he didn't know who he was.
Right, right.
And Peter Sellers had that same sort of ability that Robin Williams had to just take on any number of different types of personas and just this incredible ability to improvise. Although, I read that he didn't improvise like on Mork and Mindy, where it seemed like he was improvising all the time, and it was what I read is this was all scripted.
Ah,
That
interesting. Well, because it seemed very much like, I mean, that was his first gig, Mork and Mindy.
Yeah, so
Uh,
maybe that was wrong, but I remember being very surprised reading that. I know I
yeah, well, I bet ChatGPT could tell us.
well, it could tell us whatever sources there are
Yeah.
available, but it might. A lot of times, it can come to a pretty good conclusion. It can find enough material on something where it can weigh it and say the consensus is so and so.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, you mentioned that you mentioned you'd like to say more about your mother.
Yeah. This, as soon as I feel like, the problem with words, the problem with talking, I spoke a lot and as soon as you speak, you miss it. You,
Right.
and in retrospect, thinking about the story I told about my mother, it may have sounded like I sort of gave up on her. I said I went downstairs and called my dad and said I'm done, and they took her away to a mental facility, a psychiatric unit in Syracuse. But in fact, she was transferred to a psychiatric facility in New York City, which I got to visit her a lot there while I was at Juilliard, which was kind of weird because it was like visiting a real life. Oh darn it, what's that play and movie where one flew over the cuckoo's nest?
Right.
No, is that it? With in a psychiatric unit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ken Kesey's
Uh,
book made into an Academy Award-winning movie starring Jack
right,
Nicholson.
right. Because it was in Upper West Side. I can't remember the name of the place, but it was a real mental institution. Locked doors and double doors and people in all kinds of states of psychiatric distress and that sort of thing. And so I would visit her there, which was fertile grounds for being studying and acting because there was a lot of characters there. Um, but she managed to be treated well enough to be released, and she went on a trip to Europe, took a tour of some kind, some sort of guided tour. Um, so she got out about the same time I got kicked out of Juilliard, and I was headed to the West Coast, and she went to Europe. And she went back to North Carolina, which is where she hailed from, and settled down as a residential dorm mother for, I believe it was the college that she went to, and it suited her quite well. She basically created another family that because she felt a lot like she had lost her entire family, which she did. Um, and she bought a
Mm.
condo in High Point, North Carolina, and retired there. And I eventually had to move her to the West Coast when her mental ability started to fade. She unfortunately wound up with severe dementia of some kind.
Oh.
Uh,
Mm.
and it was gradual, and we put her in a very, very nice home not put her in, but we arranged for her to live in a, a retirement home that had some memory care to it in Oakland. And but eventually she got to the point where she was dysfunctional, and we had to put her into skilled nursing.
Mm.
We found a skilled nursing place in Richmond where she became just completely dysfunctional and unfortunately passed away um,
Wait a minute.
completely.
Doesn't sound unfortunate that she passed away to me.
Well, yeah, you're right. Yeah, she did carry a lot of. I mean, towards the end, she basically didn't. She was nonverbal, and she basically cried and screamed.
That's bad.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
that's what when she died. I bet people said, "Well, at least she's found peace now."
yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. And I was actually on a business trip to Spain when she died, so I wasn't even around. My sister was around,
Mm.
but I had felt like you said, I had felt like you know, my mother was gone a long time ago,
Yeah.
and this was just the shell that
Mm.
was unfortunately suffering. And
Mm.
it was, and the boy, when we shopped for skilled nursing facilities, my sister and I, we went to places that were just horrible. Um, so we found a small skilled nursing. They were licensed skilled nursing, but it was a house in Richmond with like maybe, I don't know, 4 bedrooms. And there was just a small group of,
Hmm.
I think most of them were Filipino, um, of nurses and staff. And so she got a lot of really, one-on-one care. So
Mm.
I felt really, really good about where she was. Because in some of the other places, we walk in and there's maybe, I don't know, some large group of people staying there, 100 or something like that, with hallways, and people are sitting in wheelchairs lined up in the hallways, just in various states of drooling and nodding off and being
Hmm.
medicated or whatever. And it's very sad, and not a lot of one-on-one care. And
Mm.
it felt like, boy, we sure don't want mom to be in this place. So I don't know. We were lucky that we found a nice place like that.
Well, the places you saw before, they had more than six
Oh
people,
yeah,
right? All right.
absolutely.
I think
Right.
six was the number. I know it was with hospice. Then if you have less, a six or less, there's different regulations and everything, and it might be easier to do well.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to make sure I didn't leave the listeners thinking that, old Ted had abandoned his mom. So
Yeah, well, that's good. That's good because I saw you as just a heartless person,
yes.
reminding me of the. I remember the Saturday Evening Post cartoon I saw once, like when I was in high school, and it had a small woman in a dark shawl sitting meekly in front of this big desk with like this Hollywood producers smoking a cigar and sitting back and going, "Yeah, I remember all that, Mom, but what have you done for me recently?"
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah.
but
Well, I was off, searching for enlightenment, and mom wasn't going to help. So,
yeah. Well, no, it sounds like you were a good, grateful, obedient, loyal son. Uh, Now you mentioned about Will because you came to Zen Center with Will, and tell us what happened there.
yeah. So, Will and I were doing our spiritual shopping, and I ended up going off to Tassajara, and I don't know how he did it, but he ended up hooking up with John Tarrant,
Hmm.
and he became a student of John Tarrant's. And I guess that group went through some upheavals of its own, relating to who was having a relationship with who
Hmm.
or whom. And so
Yeah,
Will
glad
kind of
you
drifted.
corrected that.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, um, so Will didn't end up staying directly in contact with him. And he went off and worked for a variety of different companies. And one day he got into a car accident, and they took him to the hospital to check him out. And he didn't have any major problems, but the doctor said, "Let me hold onto your hand, and I want you to squeeze my hand with your squeeze your thumb against my hand, and then your other hand." And the doctor became concerned and said, "I would like you to see a neurologist, and it has nothing to do with your car accident." And so he did, and he was diagnosed with ALS, or Lou Gehrig's disease.
Really bad.
So at first it was just one hand that, the left thumb was not functioning correctly. And then ever so slowly that arm became dysfunctional, and then it went over to the other arm. That's the way it progresses. It progresses, wherever it shows up. If it shows up in your head and neck, you don't have much long to live. But most people, it shows up in a hand or a foot drop, and somebody falls down. So you get foot drop where your foot won't lift, and you don't realize it, and your foot drops, and you catch on things, and you fall down, and that's when people discover they have ALS. And the other thing is, some people discover they're dropping their tools or dropping things all the time. They can't hold on to them, and they try to figure out why. And that's when they discover they have ALS. And so it's an amazingly difficult disease to watch progress because there's no mental disability involved. It's the person becomes locked inside a dysfunctional body, and it works its way to where they can't talk. And I was he lived for 5 something years, I believe, from diagnosis to death. And I was part of a group of people who were slowly gathering around him to take care of him. I used to make he ended up getting a feeding tube so that he could only eat liquid food that we had to feed him through this tube because he could no longer swallow correctly. And we've got a recipe for it. I still have it. In fact, I might look it up for myself for my own surgery because I have to eat liquid foods after my surgery. Um, it's a recipe that another guy with ALS developed many years ago for all the different nutrients that you mix together to make this really much better than Ensure or store-bought feeding tube type of foods. So I would make gallons of it for him, and people would take turns taking care of it. Well, and he was married, so his wife was there too all the time, but she would get burned out, obviously, if she had to do all the work of taking care of him. And one of the people that showed up who I didn't know, but of course through his relationship with John Tarrant, is how Will knew this guy, and this guy was David Weinstein,
Ah, yeah.
uh, who's a, a Zen teacher and who's your
Right.
wife's teacher.
He was in our house yesterday.
He was in Bali.
because he's my wife's teacher too.
I know. I
Yeah.
know.
So
I've heard that
she was
before.
talking to him on the phone.
Oh, I see. Yes. Yeah, and I've been when he before COVID, he had a in-person group in Piedmont, and he got in touch with me because he had just wanted to say hi or something, and so I went and sat with his group, and the brain is failing me. You've interviewed him, one of his other students, Teresa Rivera's good friend, Dan Kaplan. There we go.
Yeah, that's who I
Um,
thought you meant. But I
um,
was searching for his name. I was going, da, da, da. Yeah.
Yeah. So I went and sat with him at his group, and there, lo and behold, there's Dan Kaplan. And so it was nice to see Dan that time. But I don't believe he's doing in-person groups any longer. I think he's all online.
That might be
I
true.
think.
Well, I don't know, because when Katrinka goes back to America, she tried. She tries to be in Oakland so she can go there, but I don't know. I'll ask her.
Well, I'm sure they do like sittings and stuff like that. So they may rent places or something for like a 1 day or something like that. But
Yeah.
he had a place where they were sitting like every week, like 1 day a week or something, and he was sharing it with somebody else. Oh, I think Alan Block knows him too because he and Alan were sharing
Yeah.
a space.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so anyway, that's how I got to know David because he was one of the caretakers for my friend, and then we eventually had to move him into a skilled nursing facility, and he passed away fairly quickly after that. Um,
Hmm.
what happens is that you can't breathe,
Hmm.
your lungs fail,
Well, you're a
and
good friend, and you're a good son, and a good friend.
well, I would say taking care. My sister passed away. I spent a lot of time with her, so I did kind of like personal hospice work with people that, very intense. I'm grateful for that experience.
Mm-hmm.
And and I remember like I was with my sister as she was dying from ovarian cancer, and I had called up Yvonne because I don't know how come. But I was talking to Yvonne. I reached out to Yvonne for some support. Like, how do I deal with this? And over the phone, I can still remember the conversation. I was in Los Angeles, and over the phone, I'm in the waiting room talking to Yvonne, and she taught me the technique of the ah breath. Are you familiar with the ah breath technique when
Well,
you're with somebody?
please remind us.
Um, if you're sitting with somebody who is dying and having discomfort. And one way to be with that person is to synchronize your breathing with that person's breathing. And one way to uh, kind of communicate, a lot of times you're in a position where they're not actually very verbal. Um, Maybe they're heavily medicated or something. Um, but with every out breath, you gently make a sound, which is
Mm.
and you do that with them, and they will notice. And sometimes it's possible to synchronize your breath with them and get them with you. And then you can maybe slow down their breathing if some anxiety is starting to happen for them and their breath is getting a little upset. And you can get them to slow their breathing down without telling them to or anything like that. You're just gently, slowly, with your breath, moving their breath. And you have to be careful because depending on their breathing, it's possible for you to hyperventilate or something like this. And maybe you can't maintain it for very long. But it was an extraordinarily helpful bit of advice that I got from Yvonne. And I'll
Mm-hmm.
always remember it as
Mm.
a way. every time, I was with my mother-in-law not too long ago when she passed away, and immediately that technique came to mind.
And did you do it with her?
To some extent, she was actually on an oxygen machine, and so uh, it ended up being it was a very I would be sitting in the room with her and nobody else, and I did that a lot. Other people would come and visit and stuff like that, but I liked to go there when it was just quiet time with me and her, and the oxygen machine was the breathing.
Oh,
It makes this noise, So I was like kind of breathing with her, but I was being present with this oxygen machine. And she was very still. So that she's unlike my sister when she died, really was going through some very difficult physical discomforts. But my mother-in-law was not all that physically uncomfortable, fortunately. But
Yvonne, it might have been her first experience of being with a dying person. I don't know. I've spent a lot of time talking to Yvonne, and interviewed her and everything. Lived at her place in Muir Beach,
right.
but as far as I know, her first experience of being with a dying person was Suzuki Roshi. And she wasn't with him at the moment he died, but she and Oksan, Mrs. Suzuki, Mitsu,
Right.
were the
Right.
ones, main people taking care of him toward the end. And Yvonne talked about just sitting and breathing with him.
Right.
And I know Otohiro was actually sleeping with him the night he died, his younger son. And was that in the bed? Or maybe it was in the bathtub. He took a bath before. But at some point, he was having trouble breathing. And Otohiro, on his own, I don't know if he had any, I don't think he had any training or anything, started breathing with him and getting him to slow his breath down. And that was just period. I was looking that over because, in Crooked Cucumber, I have a great deal about his last days and dying. And in Tassajara Stories, in the next book that comes out next year, it goes, the Crooked Cucumber ended with his death. But
Right.
the next book ends with the cremation. And I try not to cover it all the same stuff, right? It's all looking
Right.
from a different point of view and not as thoroughly at all. He goes through it much quicker. But one thing I noticed wasn't in Crooked Cucumber, and I'm sure I did, is Otohiro, helped him take a bath. He said, and it might have been, I think it was in the middle of the night. He said, I'm going to bath, And they had that bathtub there, And
Right.
so Otohiro carried him over and put him in the bath. And then he wanted Della's, and this is in Crooked Cucumber, he wanted Della's scented soap, which he'd never used, right? And he washed
Wow.
himself with that. And then, but Otohiro said when he picked him up to carry him back to the bed, he dropped him. And Otohiro went, oh my God, I think really I killed my father.
Oh no.
So that's a detail you can only find by going to Otohiro's interview on Q.com, But I was
Oh,
thinking about, well, that would be a good detail to bring out that wasn't in Groovy
sh
Cucumber.
sure. Yes.
All right. That's very interesting what you have to say about being with dying people. I was,
Oh, so just one little other thing about Will is one of the lovely things is that after he passed away, his wife didn't know what to do with his sitting robes. And so I asked her permission if I could have them. And so those are the robes that I still have and that do fit me because he was a bigger man than I was back then. And I've gotten bigger since then. Um, so those are the robes I sit in. So my sitting robes have that history of
yeah,
they're
that's
the
neat. You
yeah.
also said that, it got harder and harder for him to talk. And there was a point that
Oh,
right.
right. He, dealing with impending death, he wanted, and I don't know why we picked it, but we found that Norman would be happy to come to his house and speak with him, and Will wanted to talk to somebody, and so I got a hold of Norman, and Norman came to the house, and I was one of the few people that could actually understand Will when he spoke. And so I was the interpreter, translator of Will to Norman. And Norman later gave a talk not long after that about having spoken with Will. And I don't remember now. I don't know that I bet it wasn't recorded or anything. Um, and I haven't asked Norman about it in years. But anyway, it was just wonderful to have a house call
Yeah,
from the Zen priest
yeah,
as we're
yeah.
as as we're facing, dealing with life and death. He published a newsletter for ALS patients and did a lot of research on the cause and trying to find symptomatic relief, somehow, some way to slow down the symptoms.
Who did?
And Will did.
Uh huh.
So he was quite what he said. ALS is just my condition. He was very inspirational to many people, many other ALS patients, and he was very encouraging for how to face and deal with being diagnosed with an incurable terminal disease.
And does the do you still have those newsletters? Is what he had to say? And does
Oh
it
gosh,
exist?
I don't know.
Because I'll put it on Cuke.com if you find it. You know.
Yeah, I might on some computer or something. I think I'll look for them. That's a good question
Yeah. Yeah.
because that's a nice legacy of his.
Yeah.
Um, and it was because at the time I wasn't participating actively at Zen Center at all, and I had left Zen Center and gone off to be a plumber and had kind of walked away from Zen practice um, after the whole falling out at Zen Center. Um, I decided I'm going to leave, and so I took my family and went and got a job as a plumber. That actually Frank was already working as a plumber, and he arranged for me to get a job at the same plumbing shop that he was working in, and that was the beginning of my professional plumbing career. And like I said, I wasn't practicing in any kind of. That was a difficult period of my life, but it was. after the death of Will that I realized that, hey, I'm going to go back and start participating at Zen Center more.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
uh, it was kind of what inspired me or something like that.
Hmm. Well,
The great matter.
yeah. Well, now what this call, the purpose of this call was to include a few things in our
Right.
already stupendously long podcast that we felt
Sorry
were
about that.
missing. No, no, no. It was great. Everything was great. And I'm going to make it two. That's all right. That's good.
Right.
See, I'll divide it. There'll be part one and part two. And I'm going to make this the end of part one because it fits there. Because we've already got an ending
Right.
for part two. And now, whenever we decide to say goodbye, we'll have another ending, and I'll put it there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there anything else you'd like to add that you felt, oh, darn, I wish I'd said so and so?
Well, I I didn't mention that um, somewhere around 2008, I met my wife and my now wife. I had separated from Antoinette, and I was having a difficult other relationship with somebody, and then I luckily met my wife, and that's a long, complicated story there. But the nice thing is that I uh, met a wonderful person who I am very happily living with here, and we're living in the home that she grew up in because she
Ah,
inherited it from her mother who passed away. She and I were at Tassajara doing a work period there, and as we were leaving Tassajara, she found out that her mother was in the hospital, and it took her quite, several months for her to eventually pass away. But that's when we first learned that she had lung cancer, and her mother was her parents were separated. She had no siblings, and so she inherited the house that she grew up in. And
mm,
we didn't own a house, and so we moved into this house here in Tacoma, and it's just fantastic. So,
mm, mm.
so yes, I wanted to make sure that I mentioned my wonderful wife. She works for a nonprofit group that helps people who are, most of them are homeless, but people with disabilities,
Mm-hmm.
and she's become the IT manager for that outfit now. But and she works from home, so that's sort of full circle back to what are you up to, Ted? Well, I'm in this house that my wife grew up in, and she's working from here, and
Yeah,
we got to do things like go to Europe and see you.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I really enjoyed meeting her. I remember her well. Say hello to her.
I I remember sitting down at lunch in Europe, in Germany, and so I'm out walking around talking to different people, and I come back to the table, and there's April, and across the table from April is you and Hoitsu. And Hoitsu said to me, "Be careful, you have a beautiful wife." So
Yeah,
he was complimenting her and telling me I have to be careful because,
yeah,
she's and anyway, she really enjoyed meeting him, and they seem to get along quite well.
yeah, yeah. That was a great time. I really, yeah, being with you all and him and everybody. It was
Yeah,
really great. All the
yeah,
people from Zen Center. It was sort of, there's been a lot of, what do you say, rapprochement? Or there's been a sort of reconnecting or a connecting of with San Francisco Zen Center and Dharma Sangha. That's been very
it's wonderful.
good. It's been really good.
Yep.
All right.
So, sort of. That's pretty much it. I think one of the things I've noticed that maybe you noticed too is that I feel like I spent a lot of my younger years at Zen Center, but where I was distracted a lot by trying to find a relationship and get involved with somebody. And what's really fascinating is that now that I'm involved with somebody, that there's some settling of that particular aspect of life. And it sort of opens up my ability to pay more attention to the teachings.
Yeah.
Because it's no longer a distraction. It's like, okay, we fixed that somehow, whatever that was.
Yeah. Yeah. I've almost always been with a woman. I've had like 4 major. I'm Katrinka's 4th husband. She's my 4th wife. I'm grateful to Katrinka because we have peace of mind. Our mutual friend Frank said, my path in life includes always being with a woman. I thought that was very interesting. He said that, and it certainly has been true. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Been really good talking with you again. We can just do this, every other day. And
yeah, right. Well, if I come visit you, then we could actually hang out and really spend hours and hours.
Yes.
Anyway.
All right. Well,
thank you very much.
Yeah. Take care. All right.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. This has been a Cuke audio podcast. I'm DC Pubov, Cuke Audio and Cuke Archives, coming to you from Sleepy Sanur with Dogget Bandita, Feline Manis, and dear lovely Katrinka. And we're wishing you and yours and all of us a grand awakening.